All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are on our final day this week, Salt Awareness Week. We'll be having a week-long presentations on the various angles and aspects of salt and how we can better our health with the reduction of salt intake. All right, so today our topic is hide and seek, a look at hidden salt and our right to know what we are eating. If you are here for the first time since we to check out Jamaica Library Service Facebook and YouTube to see the presentations that you missed this past week. We looked at how salt harms us and it could lead to NCDs. We look at how we can reduce it and just change up how we prepare our meals. More flavor, less salt is the topic for salt here. And so to know what we're eating is what we'll be doing today. All right. So we have our presenter for today. She's on and waiting. And so let me go ahead and introduce her. Miss Vanetta Nurse is currently an advocacy officer for the Global Health Advocacy Project at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, where she's involved in sensitization and advocacy activities related to unhealthy eating and healthy food policies. She has a Master of Public Health, specializing in health, education, and promotion, and has had experience in environmental health, food safety, health promotion and advocacy, public health, nutrition, and standards development. Vanetta is a proud mom of one, and she has a passion for children, social work, and in general, improving lives through nutrition and health. And so you can see we have a very qualified person with us, as usual, to share with us on how hidden salt is not good for us and our right to know what we are eating. Vanetta, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shelly Gay. I hope you can hear me well. Okay, I'm very honored to be here today to present on the final day of the Salt Awareness Week of activities. Certainly, it's been a great week, and we hope that information has been very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now so you can. Screen. Can let me know if you are seeing the presentation. Shelly can just indicate so I can just go ahead.
Yes, we can see
Okay.
it.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'll just be speaking about hidden salt and why it's important to know what's in our food. And this is just an overview. Talk a little bit about sources of salt in our diet, the importance of food labels, hidden salt, and front of package labeling, and why it's important to know what's in our food. So previous presenters this week, and I hope everybody gets a chance to look at those as well, would have said that salt is necessary to our bodies, but it's really the excess salt that we're consuming that's really posing a problem. Excess sodium and salt can increase your risk of hypertension, which increases the risk of heart disease and cardiovascular incidents, which are the leading cause of death and disability in Jamaica. So when we say salt and sodium, sometimes they're used interchangeably, but they're not exactly the same thing because sodium is actually a mineral. And the table salt that we use in our food or that we use at the table is actually a combination of two chemicals, sodium and chloride. So sodium naturally occurs in some of our foods. So for example, celery, beets, milk. It's not that it's added to milk, but it just naturally occurs because it's a mineral that's in the earth. It's of course added during cooking. When we cook, sometimes we like to salt our food, and at the table when we add extra salt. Sodium is also added during manufacturing of processed foods, such as canned foods. I know we like, for example, Aki's sometimes canned in salted water, or peas and beans, and then cured meat, so like saltfish, and baked goods, so breads, pizzas, etc. And I like this little graphic that I got from Harvard Health. And it's really, the percentages are really for the US population, but it's applicable because the majority of salt that we actually consume is coming from processed foods, and then some from added during our cooking and during at the table as well. So sodium plays many roles on our plate. So why would we even want to add salt in manufacturing? And salt is added to products because it's a preservative, so it keeps food safe. So for example, for some sauces, salt is added to keep the levels at a certain, bacterial levels at a certain lower level, to keep the food preserved for a longer period of time. It enhances food color or gives it a firmer texture. So sodium in the form of baking soda, which we know is used to help bread and other baked goods rise. But even though the sodium is playing an important role, more is added than often may be necessary. And to decrease our risk of chronic disease, the leading health organizations have recommended that we keep our sodium intake daily below 2,300 milligrams. That's approximately 1 teaspoon of salt. If you have high blood pressure, it's actually 1,500 milligrams. So we have to be mindful of how much salt we're consuming. So just a snapshot of the Jamaican reality there is that almost 80% of all deaths in Jamaica are actually caused by non-communicable diseases. And if it's high blood pressure, 1 in 3 Jamaicans age 50 and older has high blood pressure. And I have many family members, including my dad, who has high blood pressure. And I'm sure you all know somebody with high blood pressure. And then the scary part of it is that many Jamaicans are pre-hypertensive. So just at that crossover line, and some persons have never been diagnosed with that. So we don't know how much, how much more we have to go for us to get there. So our diet may be impacting and getting us there much faster than and really should be necessary. Um, Unhealthy eating practices. So the Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey has found that we as Jamaicans are consuming a lot of salty foods, and we're adding a lot of salt to the table. And if you look at our diet, how things have changed, I mean, we're eating more processed foods, more processed drinks because they're convenient and readily available. So we would say that, there's no time to cook at home. We have to buy food on the road, or we have to use prepackaged foods so that it makes it easier to even cook. So for example, using canned beans instead of the dried beans, the cooking time is a lot less. But our diets have moved from a more natural diet of fruits and vegetables, ground provisions, the time to cook at home, to more processed foods which are readily available and accessible. And this has led to the increase in non-communicable diseases like hypertension and heart disease. But the effects are long lasting on the financial, on our economy, on our health system, and then of course the emotional and monetary cost to individuals and families. And then of course these NCDs also left our population vulnerable because persons with these underlying conditions are more susceptible or at higher risk for serious illness and death from COVID-19. And the Minister of Health has indicated some alarming statistics there. So it's a good time. I mean, this slide is very dismal, but the good thing is there's a silver lining, and the silver lining is what we do from now going forward. So we need to look at what the food that we're eating, and we also need policies that will help us to eat healthier foods. So what can we do? And this is where food labeling really comes in. So reading labels on foods and beverages help us to make informed choices, so we will know what it is that we're eating. Packaged foods and drinks carry a lot of nutrition and even food safety information on their labels or packaging. And sometimes when we're shopping and we only have a few minutes, we don't have the time, or we neglect to look at what's on the label, but it's really something that we need to start doing. Just need to be more mindful of what we're buying. So the food label itself can have many different parts. Just hide this here. So it has a nutrition label, or it should, which has calories, it has information on nutrients such as salt, fat, sugar, but also vitamins and minerals. You may also find claims on a food label. So claims such as low in salt, low in sodium, salt-free, low in fat, contains calcium. Those are called food label claims. But we do have to be aware of misleading claims about improving health. And I recently read an article, actually yesterday, about misleading claims in that snacking has increased because of COVID-19. Children are home, so they're snacking more. People are eating a lot of unhealthy foods, kind of comfort eating, because COVID has such a toll on our mental health. So we're eating a lot of unhealthy foods. But some foods have been claiming to be low sodium and low fat, and studies have been done to show that none of that's not true. And when you have these kind of claims, then it's a health halo. So it discourages shoppers from really looking at the ingredients, and it leads you towards buying those products instead of buying another. So we still have to be mindful about the claims and still read the nutrition label if it's there. The label will also show you about allergens. So if you are allergic to milk, fish, certain peanuts, certain other additives, you should be reading the label as well. And then, of course, the ingredients list. And the ingredients are listed from most to least. So this is a graphic of the information that you can find on a food label. Some of them not especially related to nutrition, but still good information to have. So we really need to know what we're eating, where it's from, what is in it. So on the left there's the date marking, expiry date or best before date, very important. The common name of the food, the quantity, the manufacturer's name and address, the storage instructions, because sometimes you could actually be storing something that's detrimental to the nutrients in the product. So proteins, for example, denature or are ineffective at a certain high temperature. So you could be affecting what is actually in the food, as well as, of course, the food safety aspect, nutrition information, nutrition health claims, and the ingredients, which is what we will be speaking about a little bit more. So salt on the food label is usually depicted as, salt on the nutrition label, sorry, is sodium, depicted as sodium. So in reading and calculating how much salt is actually in a packaged product, you have to first look at the amount of servings and the serving size. So this part of the label at the top will tell you the size of a single serving and the total number of servings per container. This particular product has 2 servings per container. So you're looking for the amount of sodium, but the information on the label that shows you how many calories, the fat, nutrients, etc., is only for 1 serving. So if this package contains 2 servings and you're going to eat or drink the entire package, you'd have to multiply all of these quantities by 2. So sodium per serving here is 300 milligrams. If the whole package is eaten, you have to multiply by the servings per container, which is 2. So that is 600 milligrams. And to convert the sodium to salt, you need to multiply the amount by 2.2 and divide by 1,000. So here it is 600 milligrams times 2.2 divided by 1,000, and it's 1.5 grams of salt. And the recommended daily intake of salt is actually 5 teaspoons. So 1.5 grams of salt is about 1/4 teaspoon. Can you still see my screen, Shelly?
Yeah. We can.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So and another thing you can look at is the percentage daily value. So this will tell you the percentage of each nutrient based on the daily recommended amount. So the nutrition labels are usually developed based on a 2,000 calorie diet. And this can increase or decrease based on, for example, if you are more active or if you're sedentary. But the rule of thumb when you're looking at this percentage here is that 20% or more is high and 5% or less is low. So you really want to, if you're looking at sodium, 20% here is quite high. So you really want to look to keep this percentage in any product lower than 10% at least. So the many names of sodium or salt. So salt can be depicted on the label itself when you're looking at the ingredients list as salt, soda, or sodium. And it's not always listed as a single word on the food label. Sometimes it's hidden in multiple words that you may not recognize. So for example, monosodium glutamate, that's actually MSG. Some people are familiar with the acronym MSG. You can see rock salt, salt, sea salt. Sodium bicarbonate is actually baking soda, and I'm sure none of us really think that this is a source of sodium, which is linked to salt. There's sodium nitrate, which is actually used to cure some meat, so it's used to cure hams, for example. Sodium chloride, sodium lauryl sulfate. So the key here is to recognize in the ingredients list that you won't see necessarily a word that you're at all familiar with, but you may see a word that you may not recognize at all. And then, of course, there are the words that are the different types of salt. So you'll have rock salt, sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, for example. So salt you can't see. Salt is in not so obvious sources of food. So for example, breakfast cereals, even cereals coated with sugar has quite a bit of salt. Even whole wheat breads, for example, have quite a bit of salt. We recently did a check for a particular whole wheat bread, and 2 slices of bread can have as much as a quarter teaspoon of salt. Sauces, salads, and dressings. So in addition to soy sauces, ketchups also have quite a bit of salt. Even pepper sauces, salt is added for flavor there. And vegetable juices, some tomato juices, although the taste isn't actually there, these juices also have quite a bit of salt. So I'm now segue into why, as you can see, it's important to read your label and also important to know what's in your food, because sometimes the nutrients can be hidden in a way that's not immediately obvious to you, even if you are reading the labels or you're trying to cut back on some of these nutrients like salt, fat, and sugar. So I'm going to go into front of package labeling, which is a key policy initiative that we at the Heart Foundation advocate for. So I would have gone through the nutrition labeling and how to calculate the salt content, but I'm sure that some of you found that very difficult, or it's a bit technical, and it's not something that is easily done if you have a short time when you're shopping, for example. So some foods and drinks will carry that nutrition label, but some will not, because the label is not mandatory or standardized in Jamaica. So it won't be found on all processed foods. Most of the processed foods that have the nutrition label are actually being exported, but there are some that are manufactured for local use that have the label. But the point is that it's not mandatory, so you won't find the nutrition label on all products. The ingredients list, however, is mandatory, and it will be there. It should be there. If present, the nutrition facts, as I mentioned, is sometimes technical and difficult to read and understand. As consumers, sometimes we spend very little time making food choices. So without there being a mandatory law or policy for nutrition labels, sometimes nutrition information is missing, or claims are there but not verifiable. There are difficulties in understanding the food label. And then, of course, issues with maybe the fine print or the fact that there's such an influx of products from so many different sources. So consumers are left at a considerable disadvantage because really we need an easier way to make healthy choices when we're buying these products that are prepackaged. So front of package labeling is really a clear, simple graphic on the front of the package or processed foods that provides information about nutrients of concern, fats, unhealthy fats, added sugar, and of course, sodium. So these are some different types of front of package labeling. Some countries have implemented what looks like a black octagon, and this was implemented in Spanish-speaking countries, Chile, Uruguay, and Mexico, as well as Peru. And it's actually saying high in salt, high in sugars, high in calories, high in saturated fat, and high in salt. On the right-hand side there, it is a traffic light model. So basically, it shows whether, using the colors of the traffic light, shows whether the food is high, medium, or low in a particular nutrient. And this is used in the UK. But based on existing research, and this is recent research from the Pan American Health Organization, the Black Octagon model, this model has been shown to be most effective in Jamaica. So a study was done recently comparing all the models to see if persons would be able to identify the unhealthier products. And this model has been shown to be the one that is most effective in Jamaica. So if we implement front of package labeling as we want to, what would it mean for consumers? It would empower consumers to make healthier food choices, allow consumers to correctly, quickly, and easily identify products that contain excessive amounts of sugar, fats, and sodium. Simple, visible front of package labeling provide a clear understanding of what's in the food and allow us to compare products and make an informed choice. And it's really about our protection of our right to be healthy, the right to information, and to safe, nutritious food. Front of package labeling can also encourage manufacturers to improve nutritional qualities of the food, which benefits the consumer. So of course, we'll be allowed to have additional choices, lower products, lower in fat, lower in salt, and of course, lower in sugars, so that we're able to choose the healthier products and we're able to have those choices and have the environment where we have those choices accessible to us. So these are just some last words that our healthier food choices, including reducing our intake of salt, reduces the risk of non-communicable diseases such as hypertension and heart disease, which are burdening our health. We really need to know what's in our food. We need to know what's on the food label. We need easier to understand nutrition labels, a suite of policies such as front of package labeling that helps us to make more informed choices. Because as you can see, the food label is a powerful tool for us. And in the rest of the world, it has been implemented as such. And we need to follow those best practices so that the Jamaican consumers can be able to make the right choices. So what can you do to reduce your salt intake? Read your food labels, of course. As I mentioned, watch your ingredients list. Sodium comes in many forms and it's hidden as salt, soda, sodium, or hidden in multiple words that you may not recognize. Also hidden in foods that you wouldn't consider to have high amounts of sodium. Compare and choose the item with the least amount of sodium, low sodium, salt-free. You can also look for those products. Prepare food at home when you can and cook with herbs and spices instead of salt. And of course, limit the use of the processed foods. But if you must use them, of course, read your label and implement those practices such as maybe washing off the canned foods, boiling the saltfish before it's eaten as well. Request that your food be made without extra salt when eating out. And of course, advocate for healthier food policies, front of package labeling, because it's important to know what you're eating, and maintain a healthy lifestyle. So it's a broader focus on healthful eating as a whole, exercise, stress reduction, all of which will have a bigger payoff on your health. And I would just like to leave you with our campaign ad. Just get it here.
Hello. Today we're going to be making breakfast and preparing a lunchbox for school. Let's start with some sugar and wash it down with a nice big glass of more sugar. And now for the lunchbox. Let's put in saturated fats or salt and sugar. Foods high in salt, fats, and sugar increase the risk of hypertension, obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Now more than ever, we have the right to know this. Give us warning labels on the front of our food packages.
Okay, thank you so much for listening. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask, and I welcome them.
Thank you so much, Vanetta. That was a very informative presentation. I'm sure we'll be having questions come in for clarification or any comments to say if we have learned anything, if anything is new to us. A very good presentation.
Thank you.
From Debian. Thank you. Any questions from anyone? It's a lot of information, you know.
Yes.
Let me check on YouTube to see.
I see a question from Debian. Yes, it's a standard figure, 2.5 to calculate salt.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the ratio of sodium and chloride in salt, so it's a standard figure.
All right. Any other questions? See if there are any on Facebook.
Okay,
No.
the sugar. Debian is asking, how would you calculate the sugar? So let me just, I'm going to share screen again. Let me just put up the screen, the slide, and I'll show you how to calculate the sugar. Okay, so for the sugar, you're looking at the same principle in terms of looking at the servings per container. So again, this container has 2 servings. The amount per serving is 5 grams of sugar. So to get, if you're going to eat the whole package or drink the whole product in the whole container, it would be 5 grams times 2. So that's 10 grams of sugar. 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon. So that amounts to about 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. I hope that was clear. So you don't have to do the multiplication because remember that sugar is just sugar. The chemical formula stays the same. It's just that for the salt, you're using a 2.5 conversion because it's in a different form in the product. It's a sodium, which is a combination of sodium and chloride. So when you're doing sugar, it's just a simple multiplication, 5 grams times the servings per container, which is 2. And then to get the number of teaspoons, you divide it by 4.
All right. We're clear. Everybody got a refresh of how to calculate. All right, then. I'm still not seeing any questions from Facebook or YouTube. So it seems as if those are all the questions for today. All right. Thank you again, Vanetta, for the presentation. I'm sure we all learned something. And just to say that Vanetta is accessible to share information, right? You can email ghapjm@gmail.com with any questions or queries. The Heart Foundation also has a wealth of information, health education information that we can share with you all for your personal use, or if you're part of any larger group, church group, work groups, health clubs, we're available to share that information with you as well. All right. So no questions still. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close out. This week, it was a good week of presentations. I'm sure a lot of persons learned something. You know, today we spoke about hidden salt, and I'm sure we weren't clear on how much salt is in the food that we consume. And I'm sure now when we go to the supermarket, we'll go a little earlier so we can spend some time to see what exactly it is we're picking up and placing in the baskets, right? So thank you all. My name is Shelly Gay Gordon from Heart Foundation, and we had Vanetta Nurse today who shared on hidden salt, hide and seek, a look at hidden salt and our right to know what we are eating. I've learned a lot from some of the presentations Jay Ennis shared. Thank you for sharing. All right, so we're just going to share our jingle to close out, and we do hope that going forward, you'll be making healthier, more informed decisions. All right, I'll play it one more time as we close out. Have a great weekend, everyone.